Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to play what our source material calls the highest form of game, the game of thinking. We are diving headfirst into a collection of absolutely profound paradoxes. Think of these as mental mazes, specifically designed to test the very boundaries of logic, reality, and language. Now, these aren't just your everyday clever little riddles. We're talking about fundamental contradictions that have literally baffled the greatest minds in history. So buckle up and prepare to have your perspective totally twisted as we explore how the actual rules of our universe can seemingly break down right in front of our eyes. So, here's our map of the maze for today. First up, we'll hit the self-reference trap. Then, we'll explore illusions of space and time. And finally, we'll tackle impossible catch-22 dilemmas. All right, let's kick things off with level 1, the self-reference trap. You know, language is basically our primary tool for making sense of the world, right? But what actually happens when it points a mirror right back at itself? Take a look at these two sentences. The sentence below is true, and the sentence above is false. Now, I want you to really think about this and figure out which one is actually true. Give it a shot. Okay, so if the first sentence is true, then the second sentence must be true. But wait, the second sentence literally says the first sentence is false. Okay, so if the first one is true, it actually has to be false. But if it's false, then the second sentence is false, which means the first sentence is true. Boom, your brain just went into an infinite loop, didn't it? That right there is the immediate, mesmerizing trap of a self-referential paradox. Okay, so let's dive into a really classic puzzle that builds on this exact same trap. It's called Russell's paradox. Picture this. There's a place called Savile Village, and there's a barber living there who wants to be super specific about his clientele. So he hangs a little sign outside his shop. The sign reads, "I only shave those who do not shave themselves." Now, at first glance, that sounds like a perfectly reasonable business model, doesn't it? He's just serving the folks who can't or simply won't shave themselves. But then a villager walks right up and asks the barber a very simple, innocent question. Do you shave yourself? And instantly, the barber is just completely at a loss for words. Why? Well, think about it. If the barber says, no, I don't shave myself, then he falls perfectly into the category of people described on his own sign, meaning he must shave himself. But if he says, yes, I shave myself, then according to a super strict rule, he's not allowed to shave himself. There's literally no way out. Neither a yes nor a no works. The logic just perfectly cancels itself out. Now, this kind of contradiction doesn't just hang around in village barbershops. It extends deep into ancient philosophy, too. Consider this famous quote, "The wise do not speak, and those who speak do not know." Honestly, it's a beautiful, really profound sentiment. But hold on a second. Huge historical figures like Jesus, Sakyamuni, and Laozi spent their entire lives teaching and speaking to the masses, right? So, by the strict logic of this exact statement, are these revered figures actually ignorant? Or is the person who originally spoke this quote proving their own ignorance just by saying it out loud? Moving right along to level 2, illusions of space and time. What if I told you that the way we perceive moving through the physical world might actually be mathematically impossible? This is the core idea behind Zeno's paradox of distance. Imagine you want to walk a certain distance. Let's just call it distance d. Before you can travel the whole way there, you first have to travel exactly half of it. Makes total sense. But before you can travel that remaining half, you have to travel half of that, which is a quarter of the total distance. And then you must travel an eighth, a 16th, and so on infinitely. You can literally keep dividing that remaining distance in half forever. And because there are an infinite number of these halfway points to cross, theoretically, you should never actually reach your destination. Obviously, practically, we cross distances every single day. But logically, theoretically, we shouldn't be able to. And Zeno actually takes this whole concept even further with the arrow paradox. Picture an arrow shot straight from the bow. At any exact frozen instant in time, that arrow has a fixed, specific position. And at that precise instant, it occupies a space exactly equal to its volume. It isn't moving during that instant because an instant has absolutely no duration. Therefore, at any given frozen snapshot in time, the arrow is completely at rest. But wait, if the arrow's entire flight is just made up of these frozen instants and it's at rest in every single one of them, how does it ever actually move? The pure logic here forces us to conclude that a flying arrow is entirely motionless. It's a complete mindbender. This massive disconnect between observation and reality really echoes the logic of the philosopher Huineng. When looking at a waving red flag, Hyunung argued that it's neither the flag that moves nor the wind that moves, but rather it's the mind of the observer that is moving. It's a pretty profound shift in how you view the world, but it leaves us with a totally staggering question to ponder. If the observer's mind simply stops moving, does the red flag stop waving? Where exactly does physical reality end and our mental perception begin?
All right, it is time to enter the boss level of our thinking game. Level 3, Impossible Catch-22 Dilemmas.
Here we're looking at real-world scenarios that are just completely trapped in inescapable loops. Let's set the scene for the classic robber's dilemma. A robber ties a merchant to a tree and says, "Guess how I'm going to deal with you. If you guess correctly, I'll release you, but if you guess wrong, I'm going to kill you." The merchant thinks carefully and delivers an absolutely genius answer. He says, "You will kill me." Now notice the perfect, beautiful trap this creates. If the robber decides to kill the merchant, well, it means the merchant guessed correctly. And remember, the robber promised to release him if he guessed right. But if the robber releases him, it means the merchant guessed wrong, and the penalty for guessing wrong is death. So the absolutely crucial point here is that the robber is utterly paralyzed. He can't kill him, and he can't let him go without breaking the very rules he just set. Honestly, what would you do if you were the robber? It's just a complete system failure of logic, isn't it?
Let's escalate this to a full-blown legal standoff with Socrates' dilemma. So Socrates taught a student logic, and the deal was simple. Pay half up front and pay the rest only if you truly master the subject. If you don't master it, you don't owe a dime. Well, the student finishes the course and just flat out refuses to pay. So Socrates threatens to drag him to court. Socrates' logic is totally bulletproof. He says, look, if I win the court case, the judge orders you to pay. If you win the case, it proves you mastered logic, so by our contract, you must pay. Either way, I'm getting paid. But the student counters with opposite, equally bulletproof logic. He says, if you win, Socrates, it proves I didn't master logic, so by our contracts, I don't pay. If I win, the judge orders me not to pay. Either way, I pay absolutely nothing. It's wild. The exact same event creates completely opposite, legally inescapable outcomes.
Okay, from legal loops, we arrive at the absolute ultimate physical loop, the grandfather paradox, or in this case, the time travel paradox. Let's walk through this timeline step by step. Your great-grandmother lives. This eventually leads to you being born. You grow up, invent a time machine, travel back in time, and kill your great-grandmother before she ever has children. Consequently, you are never born. But wait a minute. If you're never born, you can never invent the machine and travel back in time to kill her, which means she lives. Which means you are born, which means you do go back and kill her. Cause and effect have just entirely broken down here. The sequence literally consumes itself. To wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final, ultimate, mind-bending contradiction: the paradox of God. By definition, God is omnipotent, meaning he can do absolutely anything. So here is the big question. Can an omnipotent God create a stone so incredibly heavy that even he cannot lift it? Think about it. If the answer is yes, then there's something he cannot do. He can't lift the stone. Therefore, he isn't omnipotent. But if the answer is no, then there is also something he cannot do. He cannot create the stone in the first place. So again, he is not omnipotent. How do you possibly resolve a concept that defeats itself the exact moment it's defined? I'm going to let you keep playing that game of thinking long after this explainer ends. Thank you so much for exploring the maze with me today.